Shazam Easter eggs. Hopefully you've had a chance to see the movie. They reference all kinds of comic book things, also things from the other movies recently in the DCEU, as well as other things that the director and the actors had worked on. There's so much big stuff coming up. We're still doing that IMAX ticket giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave your favorite Shazam moment on the video. So we'll say careful for spoilers from the movie if you haven't seen it, because we'll be talking about all kinds of details as well as what happens at the end of the movie. Starting at the beginning of the movie, working our way to the end. So at the beginning of the movie, you get Dr. Sivana's backstory. You notice that his father is played by one Jonathan Glover, who was Lionel Luthor on the Smallville TV series, keeping the cameos in the family. When he's transported to the Rock of Eternity, you see the 7 deadly sins, which are right out of the Shazam comics. What they did was give him a version of the Black Adam story from the New 52, Jeff Johns' run. So Black Adam was a big part of that story. He tries to release the 7 deadly sins. In this version of events, Dr. Sivana learns about magic as a child and continues to seek out the 7 deadly sins to take their power, but knows nothing about Black Adam, whereas in the New 52 version, he is the one who released Black Adam from his imprisonment, who then goes on to try and release the 7 deadly sins, and you get that big ending at the amusement park that you got a version of during the Shazam movie. The Wizard Shazam being played by Djimon Hounsou, the coincidence being is that he was also in the Captain Marvel movie, which was released in the same month as Korath, a younger version of the character, so he was in 2 different Captain Marvel movies released in the same month, which was just a huge coincidence. But at the beginning of the movie, when Billy tricks the police officers into breaking into that pawn shop, you see an Annabelle creation doll on the shelf. That's the movie that the director who directed Shazam did before this. When Billy gets arrested and taken into family services, on the desk of the woman who's talking to him is a smiley face from the Watchmen comics. If you didn't know, they're going to be doing a Watchmen TV series on HBO that'll premiere later this summer. There were a ton of Talkie Tawny tiger references throughout the film. He had a tiger on his backpack, which is a reference to that, but they also revealed that they're going to be heading into the Magic Lands in the sequel, and in the recent Rebirth comics, Talkie Tawny, the tiger people that he belongs to, are from the Magic Lands, so we might actually meet the literal talking tiger during one of the sequels. When they're fighting the 7 deadly sins in the amusement park later in the film, he gives one of the stuffed tigers to the little kid. His mother also tries to win him one in a similar game during the flashbacks. There were a whole bunch of Batman and Superman references, but one of the newspapers with the Superman headlines is actually a headline from Christopher Reeve's 1978 Superman movie. They did say that they were going for the tone of that mixed with the big movie, so while a lot of the DC references were to the recent films like Henry Cavill's Superman suit and those characters, they also referenced a lot of stuff from the classic Superman films. Later in the film, they confirmed that he's met the Justice League when Superman comes to eat lunch with them or bring them dessert, paying off the line that the bullies threw at Freddy earlier in the film. The reason why they said they didn't show his face is because they wanted to use Henry Cavill, and his schedule just didn't work out for that cameo. They wrote lines of dialogue, but they actually liked it the way it went down because it's all about Freddy's reaction, and it would have been a little bit different if Henry Cavill had launched into this big speech when he sat down. You all spotted Freddy's bullet that bounced off of Superman he claims is authentic, probably worth $500, he says. There's a replica Batarang from Batman v Superman. There's all the superhero t-shirts that Freddy wears. He wears an Aquaman t-shirt with Jason Momoa's Aquaman symbol on it. Presumably, this is taking place after the events or concurrently with the events of the Aquaman movie, but because it's around Christmas time, I'm assuming it's after Aquaman. There's also the Time magazine reference from the Kryptonian invasion during the Man of Steel movie. He has all kinds of action figures. Most of the Superman emblems are from Henry Cavill's, but when they're in the toy shop, you see all kinds of DC Direct toys that you can actually go out and buy right now. A lot of those toys are real toys based on the Justice League characters. The voice of Batman, when he throws the Batman figure at Dr. Sivana and says, "Go get him, Batman," is actually one of the people that worked on the film. It's not really Kevin Conroy as we had previously believed. When both Dr. Sivana at the beginning of the movie and then later Billy enter the Rock of Eternity, inside the entrance you see a bunch of magical artifacts strewn about. Most notably Mr. Mind, who makes an appearance at the end of the film when he comes to Dr. Sivana after he escapes, but you also spot this magic mirror that looks like it's right out of Snow White. There's actually someone who lives in the mirror called Francesca in the comics they might bring into one of the sequels, but a lot of those magical artifacts are just meant to be Easter eggs. There were a lot of people that thought that they spotted the Helmet of Fate, but I don't think that that's anywhere in the background of these shots, but you do spot this magical scepter in the background here that's also in the background of this shot called the Ibs stick, which belonged to Ibis the Invincible. The burning violin that you also see in there is also a reference to a former pupil of the wizard Shazam from the classic Shazam comics that appeared during Captain Marvel Adventures number 64. He was a person named Augar. He enchants a violin to set fire whenever someone plays it, gives it to one of his henchmen, and they use it to burn down New York City. The Wizard Shazam gives Billy a very magical PowerPoint presentation on Black Adam and the history of the Rock of Eternity in the Magical Council. They make no reference to where he is in present day, but they say that they wrongly gave him their powers. He unleashed the 7 deadly sins to get revenge on man for the death of his wife, and they barely fought him off at the cost of all of his brothers and sisters. Presumably, they also subdued Black Adam, and he will be released during the Black Adam movie. The high school that they go to is called Fawcett Central, which is a reference to Fawcett Comics, the original publication that told the Shazam stories when he was still called Captain Marvel. When they cut class to go test Billy's powers, the abandoned warehouse that they go to is an Ace Chemicals abandoned warehouse, which is a reference to the Joker in the Batman comics. When they're trying to come up with funny names for Billy, they make a couple Marvel references. Captain Sparklefingers is actually a female Captain Marvel reference. Kelly Sue DeConnick, during her run, called Carol Danvers Princess Sparklefist a couple times. Then you also hear someone try to call Billy Zapton America, as in Captain America. When they're at the real estate agent's office trying to find a superhero lair, they make a couple references to the Christopher Nolan Batcave. Yeah, we're looking for a cave with a waterfall wall flowing over, with a cave that we can jump into, just like the Batcave during the Dark Knight trilogy. There are a couple really big Rocky movie references, so they climb the steps at the museum, they talk about Rocky a little bit. Now I get what Rocky was talking about when he's looking at the view. Then later he's busking on the steps doing the lightning hands while the song Eye of the Tiger from the Rocky movies is playing, which you could also call a reference to Talkie Tawny, the talking tiger. Like I said, just another one of the many tiger references throughout Shazam. Game of Thrones Season 8 is starting this weekend. Freddy makes a Game of Thrones reference when he's joking about why he can't walk. He holds up his cane and says, "Oh, don't let these other people fool you. It gets real Game of Thrones around here," making a joke about being pushed out the window like Bran Stark.
The things I do for love.
Like I said, they were trying to make a Superman movie cross with Tom Hanks' Big. They actually do the giant keyboard moment from the Big movie when Dr. Sivana is chasing him out of the store and they both run across that giant keyboard. Billy's mother's name, Cece Batson, is actually a reference to Cece Beck, who was one of the creators of Captain Marvel when he was at Fawcett Comics. You wonder why there are 7 chairs for the Magical Council, but there are only 6 members of the Shazam family. The 7th member is actually someone from the Rebirth comics who claims to be the lost 7th member of the Shazam family, so maybe they'll pay that off in the next film. But I also believe that David Sandberg, the director, may have cameoed when they were doing the scene with Billy's mother, when he tries to go to her apartment building and there's the boyfriend in the background yelling at her off screen. I think that that's the director. When they're opening all the doors to the different planes of existence and the different dimensions inside the Rock of Eternity, you see what looks like a crocodile playing cards with a bunch of other monsters. That's a reference to the Crocodile Men that the classic version of Captain Marvel fought in the comics. It also sort of loops back around to Mr. Mind too, because Mr. Mind was originally part of the Monster Society of Evil. One of the crocodile people was also a member of that evil team-up. Like I said at the end of the movie, when Dr. Sivana is in his cell and Mr. Mind comes to visit him and says the 7 realms are about to be ours, he's talking about the 7 realms of magic, the magic lands, which are actually happening right now in the current comics. We've only got a little bit of them, but Black Adam actually just appeared during that storyline. So if they want to keep the sequels just localized to the magic lands, then they could always introduce Black Adam that way. The moment at the end of the film when he gives the Shazam family their powers is right out of the comics, but like I said, in the original New 52 version of that story, it was Black Adam that they were fighting during that moment, not Dr. Sivana. Some of these Easter eggs are like 3 levels deep too. It gets super meta. So Adam Brody is playing the adult super version of Freddie Freeman, which I think is a perfect casting. They both have the exact same personality. But if you remember, Adam Brody was originally cast as the Barry Allen Flash during Justice League Mortal, which was a movie that never ended up happening. So the sort of bringing it around full circle. He even taunts the 7 deadly sins, saying, "I've studied every single superhero move." So it's just a reference to all the stuff that he almost did when he was once upon a time the Barry Allen Flash. When Superman comes to eat lunch with them at the end of the film, the way I take it is that a little bit of time has gone by, enough for Billy to go seek out the Justice League. He's probably met with Superman, he's probably met Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the other members. So he's had enough time to get to know Superman well enough to convince him to come eat lunch at a kid's high school, which is not something that Superman would typically do for anybody. But it is Henry Cavill's Superman suit. Obviously, this is a body double because it's not really Henry Cavill standing there, but that's who it's meant to be. There were all kinds of other minor references, like they talk about leaping tall buildings in a single bound, all the different powers that they try to test him with, fire immunity, super strength. They're basically going down the list of all the powers of the Justice League characters. And at the end of the film, the very last post-credit scene, he says, "Well, I can't talk to fish. What can we do with that?" Freddy gets all exasperated and tugs on his Aquaman shirt. "Oh, I don't know, summon an army of fish." And he goes, "Oh, well, that's not that cool." Jason Momoa in real life already said that he loves the Shazam movie, so he probably laughed pretty hard when he saw it the first time. But I'm sure that in some sequel they'll find a way to pay off other big Justice League cameos and references. So if it wasn't clear, they now have the Shazam family. Technically, they probably have enough that they don't need to cross him over with the other characters, but I think that everybody hopes to someday see him in a Justice League film. But if you spotted any other really big Easter eggs for the comics or anything else from the other movies, just write them below in the comments. In related DC news, the Flash TV show is back next week. The episode is called Godspeed. They're probably going to do a version of Godspeed on it, so look out for that. Game of Thrones is starting this weekend. I'll be doing videos for that all season long, and obviously there's all the Marvel Avengers Endgame stuff happening. Congratulations to The Flow. You're the giveaway winner for my last big DC video. Please email me on the About page of my channel so I can get your details. Click here to watch The Rock